faithfully sharing insights and interpreting top books from around the globe. Hello, this is Sally's Book Talk. Today, I'll interpret for you a book called A Passage to India. This is a novel published in 1924 by the renowned British author E.M. Forster. The novel was named one of the 100 greatest novels of all time by Time magazine. It also ranked on the Modern Library's list of the 100 best English language novels of the 20th century. In 1984, the famous British director David Lean adapted this novel into a film, winning numerous awards, including the Oscars and Golden Globes. The title, A Passage to India, comes from a poem of the same name by the great American poet Walt Whitman, written in 1870. Whitman wrote that the world, without distinction of east, west, north, or south, is connected by a great web, expressing hope for global unity. In the novel, Forster uses this to explore the possibility of mutual integration among people from diverse backgrounds. In 1912, at age 33, Forster first traveled to India and found he couldn't agree with colonists who believed Indians were inherently needing discipline. He also discovered the impact of colonialism on the blending of different ethnicities, classes, and cultures. This affected him deeply. The following year, in 1913, he started writing the novel A Passage to India, and it wasn't completed until 1921, after his second trip to India. The writing process took 8 years. In the novel, Forster explores the possibility of equal coexistence between two nations and cultures, with the plot centered around the character Aziz. Aziz is an Indian doctor who, in his interactions with the British, repeatedly tries to build friendships with mixed outcomes. Some encounters leave him with lasting gratitude, while others cause him great distress. Now, let's dive into the story of A Passage to India. The story is set in an ordinary small town on the Ganges River called Chandrapur, surrounded by lush tropical jungle with beautiful scenery. But the town is dirty and chaotic, with dilapidated houses, and the Indians living there are unkempt, like figures made of mud. In contrast, on a high ground not far outside the city, stand the British colonial residences, well planned with tidy polo grounds and hospitals. And the protagonist, Aziz, lives in this small town of Chandrapur. He is an Indian Muslim and a doctor by profession. Oh, his wife passed away a year ago. One day, Aziz met his two friends. They were heatedly debating whether a British person and an Indian could become friends in India, and they were basically positive about it. And one of them said that British men might take up to 2 years to blend into India. British women only need 6 months. And the other guy, having studied at Cambridge University in England, was more worldly and said he knew a few angelic British ladies. Just as they were eating, a local British major sent someone to summon Aziz over without saying what it was about. Aziz hurried over, only to find that the major had left half an hour ago, with no message left. Then, the major's wife and another British lady walked out, took Aziz's carriage away without a word, ignored his bow completely. Aziz was used to this kind of treatment, so he had to walk alone. On his way home, he passed by a mosque, went in to rest, admired the beautiful architectural details, and daydreamed of building one himself someday. At that moment, Aziz saw an elderly British lady walk in. He flew into a rage, telling her, "This is a Muslim holy site. Remove your shoes before entering." But as he spoke, the lady had already taken off her shoes. Apologetic and concerned, he apologized right away, asked if she needed a carriage, and mentioned snakes nearby, advising her to be careful. The elderly lady was pious and friendly. She chatted with Aziz, introducing herself as Mrs. Moore, just from England visiting her son Ronnie, a judge here. Aziz complained about the arrogant ladies taking his carriage, and Mrs. Moore listened patiently without defending them. Aziz was deeply moved. He couldn't help but say, "You understand me. You get others' feelings. If only everyone was like you." Thus, Mrs. Moore became the first British person Aziz truly connected with. From this chance encounter, Aziz gradually developed more relationships with British people. The next day, Mrs. Moore went to the British Colonists Club to join their gathering. There, the British were also talking about Indians, with most people, especially the ladies, using a disdainful tone towards them. One lady said, "If you touch an Indian, even your own family won't want to touch you anymore." Another lady who had been a nurse said, "I've had too much close contact with Indians. My biggest wish now is to stay far away from them." Mrs. Moore met her son Ronnie and told him, "Last night in the mosque, I met an Indian who first yelled at me to take off my shoes, but after we talked, it was quite pleasant." Ronnie got furious and said, "That's just how Indians are, rude and yelling. You need to be wary. They're all suspicious characters." In Ronnie's eyes, the mere rudeness of Indians justified the British disciplining them properly. But a British woman who came to India with Mrs. Moore didn't think that way. Her name was Adela, and she was Ronnie's lover, intending to marry him. Hearing Mrs. Moore talk about Indian Muslims, Adela got excited and said, "I want to see real Indians myself, not just hear rumors." Adela was young, adventurous, and felt it was a shame not to see the world's other side. Ronnie worried Mrs. Moore's attitude would influence Adela. He didn't want Adela caring about big issues like whether Britain should colonize India, so he stopped her. Soon after, the British tax collector held another banquet, inviting not only the British, but also sending invitations to the city. The intention was to foster mutual understanding between British and Indians among the wealthy and socially prominent Indians. Among the invited Indians were well-known wealthy landowners and respected doctors like Aziz. But that day coincided with the first anniversary of Mrs. Aziz's death. After careful consideration, Aziz declined. At the banquet, the Indians acted very reserved, while the British chatted and laughed freely. Ronnie, with a tax collector's wife and, some other British ladies, talked disdainfully about Indian women's clothing. Only Mrs. Moore and Adela chatted with an Indian woman. Because of this, Ronnie had another argument with his mother, Mrs. Moore. Miss Moore was furious. She felt the British were too arrogant and rude to Indians, and Ronnie got upset when he heard that. He reiterated his stance, representing the British colonial authorities, saying, "We're not here to act refined. We're here to uphold justice and maintain order, and neither you nor Adela can betray our class." Ronnie's attitude made Adela very unhappy. She thought that if she married Ronnie, she'd probably be stuck in his world, mingling with those pretentious and vulgar British ladies. In Adela's heart, everything about India is so mysterious. She wants to experience as much as possible. Then, at the banquet, another person appeared who could connect with Mrs. Moore and Adela. His name is Fielding, a 45-year-old British bachelor, headmaster of a local national school, and an exception among the colonists. At school, he strives to treat all students equally, educating them to have free thoughts and abandon racial consciousness. In society, he also tries to have equal conversations with everyone. So, unlike other colonists, Fielding has many Indian friends. So, Fielding proactively suggested introducing Mrs. Moore and Adela to some Indian friends. Mrs. Moore immediately mentioned Aziz. Fielding said, "I've heard of him. I'm hosting a tea party at my home on Thursday. I'll invite both of you and Aziz to chat properly." Plus, after Mrs. Moore, Adela and Fielding also became potential contacts for Aziz. On the very day Aziz missed the banquet, after mourning his wife to distract himself, he rode a horse to the field and played for a while. Hello. During this, he met another British lieutenant who was also playing. Both focused intently for a while. Unconsciously, when reining in the horses to rest, the two exchanged smiles. The book says that when they parted, they saluted each other, both thinking how great it would be if everyone were like this. Although Aziz didn't further contact this lieutenant, this detail made Aziz start to optimistically anticipate. Equal friendship is coming, but it's not that having sincerity and desire to make friends guarantees success. Personality, culture, customs, ethnic backgrounds, etc., all affect the achievement of friendship. In the next part of the novel, at Fielding's tea party, we can see this point. That day, Aziz was the first to arrive at Fielding's residence. When he got there, Fielding said his gold cufflink was broken, so Aziz immediately gave his own to Fielding, lying that he had extras, showing his kind and hospitable nature. Later, Mrs. Moore and Adela came. Trusting Mrs. Moore, Aziz relaxed and rambled on about many things: the Mughal Empire in Indian history, mango cultivation, and surgeries he had performed. Driven by his hospitable habit, he also said, "You're all welcome to visit my home." Adela was curious about everything he said, and hearing this, she immediately asked for his address. She said, "Great, I can finally see what a real Indian home looks like." Aziz felt embarrassed when he heard Adela's words because his home was very shabby, just a small room with flies buzzing around. He didn't expect Adela to take his polite words seriously. He quickly changed the subject and invited the three British friends present to visit a scenic spot about 20 miles away, the Marabar Caves. Also present was a mysterious Hindu devotee who was Fielding's assistant. He sang an Indian song, and Mrs. Moore listened intently, becoming unconsciously enchanted. At that moment, Ronnie suddenly barged in. He still acted with an air of a British official, completely ignoring the two Indians present, and directly called Adela and Mrs. Moore out to watch the polo match. Ronnie also said to Adela, "Look at Aziz's shirt. It doesn't even have a cufflink." Indians are all sloppy and lazy like that. They don't pay attention to any details. Of course, he didn't know that Aziz had given his cufflink to Fielding. Ronnie's behavior angered Adela. She immediately apologized to the others present, saying, "Sorry for Ronnie's rudeness," and then declined Ronnie's invitation to watch the polo match. After calming down, she had a private talk with Ronnie. She said, "We can't get married, and I don't want to stay in India." Both returned unhappily. Just then, an Indian landlord passed by and offered them a ride. In the car, with beautiful natural scenery passing by and the boundless sky above, both felt reluctant to part again. Later on the road, there was a minor car accident. Ronnie handled it responsibly, protecting Adela thoughtfully, which deeply moved her. The two ultimately decided to marry, but afterward, Adela felt depressed, realizing she'd soon become a British colonial wife. What happened next pushed the novel to its climax. Aziz proposed visiting the Marabar Caves, though he'd never been. He knew it was mysterious, but couldn't explain why. This indescribable mystery only heightened Adela's interest. Fielding and Mrs. Moore happily agreed to go. Aziz spent a fortune preparing for the trip. He booked train tickets, prepared meals, and arranged all necessary servants. He was thrilled, feeling fortunate to meet elegant, unbiased British ladies like Mrs. Moore and Adela. His hospitality should have built friendship, but on departure day, Fielding arrived late, so they left without him. Near the caves, Aziz arranged for the ladies to ride an elephant. This tourist attraction wasn't the real India Adela wanted to experience, though Aziz thought they'd enjoy it. And the misunderstanding dampened both ladies' moods. Crucially, Aziz didn't know the caves well, but had to be their guide. Upon entering, Mrs. Moore grew dizzy in the first cave from tourist smells and booming echoes. At the banquet, Indians acted reserved while the British chatted freely. Ronnie and other British ladies disdainfully discussed Indian women's clothing, while Mrs. Moore and Adela spoke with an Indian woman. This caused another argument between Ronnie and Mrs. Moore. Furious, Mrs. Moore felt the British were arrogant toward Indians, upsetting Ronnie. He reiterated, representing British colonial authority. We're not here to be refined. We're here to uphold justice and order. Neither you nor Adela can betray our class. Ronnie's attitude made Adela very unhappy. She thought that if she married Ronnie, she'd probably be stuck in his world, mingling with those pretentious and vulgar British ladies. In Adela's heart, everything about India is so mysterious. She wants to immerse herself as much as possible. At that moment, another person appeared who could connect with Mrs. Moore and Adela. His name is Fielding, a 45-year-old British bachelor, headmaster of a local national school, and an exception among the colonists. At school, he strives to treat all students equally, educating them to have free thoughts and abandon racial consciousness. But in society, he also tries to have equal conversations with everyone. So, unlike other colonists, Fielding has many Indian friends. So, Fielding proactively suggested introducing Mrs. Moore and Adela to some Indian friends. Mrs. Moore immediately mentioned Aziz. Fielding said, "I've heard of him. I'm hosting a tea party at my home on Thursday. I'll invite both of you and Aziz to chat properly." Just after Mrs. Moore, Adela and Fielding also became potential contacts for Aziz. On the very day, Aziz missed the banquet. After mourning his wife, to distract himself, he rode a horse to the field and played for a while. During polo, he met another British lieutenant who was also playing, both focused intently for a while. Unconsciously, when reining in the horses to rest, the two exchanged smiles. The book says that when they parted, they saluted each other, both thinking how great it would be if everyone were like this. Although Aziz didn't further contact this lieutenant, this detail made Aziz start to optimistically anticipate. Equal friendship is coming, but it's not that having sincerity and desire to make friends guarantees success. Personality, culture, customs, ethnic backgrounds, etc., all affect the achievement of friendship. In the next part of the novel, at Fielding's tea party, we can see this point. That day, Aziz was the first to arrive at Fielding's residence. When he got there, Fielding said his gold cufflink was broken. So Aziz immediately gave his own to Fielding, lying that he had extras, showing his kind and hospitable nature. Later, Mrs. Moore and Adela arrived. Trusting Mrs. Moore, Aziz relaxed and rambled on about many things: the Mughal Empire in Indian history, mango cultivation, and surgeries he had performed. Driven by his hospitable nature, he also said, "You're all welcome to visit my home." Adela was fascinated by everything he said. Hearing this, she immediately asked for his address, exclaiming, "Wonderful! I can finally see what a real Indian home looks like." Aziz felt embarrassed when he heard Adela's words because his home was extremely shabby. Just a small room, swarming with flies. He hadn't expected Adela to take his polite invitation seriously. He quickly changed the subject and invited the three British friends to visit a scenic spot about 20 miles away. The Marabar Caves. Also present was a mysterious Hindu devotee who was Fielding's assistant. He sang an Indian song, and Mrs. Moore listened intently, becoming completely enchanted. Suddenly, Ronnie barged in. Acting with full British official airs, he ignored the Indians present and summoned Adela and Mrs. Moore to watch the polo match. Ronnie told Adela, "Look at Aziz's shirt. Not even a cufflink. Indians are all sloppy and lazy like that. They never pay attention to details." Unaware Aziz had given his cufflink to Fielding, Ronnie's behavior infuriated Adela. She immediately apologized to others, sorry for Ronnie's rudeness, and declined his polo invitation. After calming down, she told Ronnie privately, "We can't marry and I won't stay in India." Both returned dejectedly. An Indian landlord offered them a ride. In the car, with beautiful scenery passing and endless sky above, they felt reluctant to part. Later, a minor car accident occurred. Ronnie handled it responsibly, protecting Adela thoughtfully, which deeply moved her. They ultimately decided to marry, but afterward, Adela grew depressed, realizing she'd soon become a British colonial wife. The story now reaches its climax. Aziz suggested visiting the Marabar Caves, though he'd never been. He knew it was mysterious but couldn't explain why. This indescribable mystery only heightened Adela's interest. Fielding and Mrs. Moore happily agreed to go. Aziz spent a fortune preparing for the trip. He booked train tickets, prepared meals, and arranged all necessary servants. He was thrilled, feeling fortunate to meet elegant, unbiased British ladies like Mrs. Moore and Adela. His hospitality should have built friendship. But on departure day, Fielding arrived late, so they left without him. The book describes this person as godlike, a soul-hauling machine. Adela watched him and suddenly felt summoned by a mysterious force. Her chaotic thoughts and illusions vanished. She felt the fan puller's indifferent expression mocked her pettiness. So she testified, "In the cave, Aziz didn't follow or assault me." She withdrew the charges. The courtroom erupted. Indians hailed Adela as a hero, while Fielding was praised for not siding with whites. Fielding's Indian students carried them in a victory parade, but Fielding appeared weary amidst the noise. He disliked British exclusion but also resisted Indian adulation, preferring independence. He deeply felt this land expelling him, wanting him gone. Later, Aziz was acquitted and released from prison. Seeing Fielding, he collapsed, weeping in his arms, but their relationship had quietly grown distant. Aziz felt he'd given Fielding his heart, even his cufflink. Yet when falsely accused, Fielding hadn't actively defended him. As for Fielding, he was annoyed by the riots from Aziz's countrymen, feeling he shouldn't be in this mess. Later, Fielding learned of Adela's psychological shift during the trial. He told Adela, "You did right. Honesty will take us to heaven." Adela asked, "Will we really go to heaven?" Fielding replied, "If heaven exists, in the remaining chapters, the fates of the main characters shift." First, Mrs. Moore died during her return voyage. Then, Adela's dropped charges humiliated the British. Ronnie abandoned her, forcing Adela's return. Then Fielding decided to leave too, devastating Aziz. He hoped to keep Fielding as a friend, but that last hope vanished. When Fielding mailed a wedding announcement postcard, Aziz burned it unread. He thought, "Now I'm truly Indian," as his dream of British friendship shattered completely. 2 years later, Aziz learned Fielding married Mrs. Moore's daughter, Ronnie's sister. Aziz also heard Ronnie wanted to reconcile with Adela, asking Fielding to mediate. Learning these Brits sought reconciliation moved Aziz deeply. He wrote to Adela, "Thank you for your bravery that kept me out of prison." But Aziz never forgot Mrs. Moore. Learning her other son was in India, he sought him out. "I want to be your friend." He restarted British friendships. Finally, Fielding returned to India. Riding together, Aziz told Fielding, "I realize only by driving out all you British can I be your friend." Fielding said, "Then why can't we be friends now?" Aziz replied, "No, not yet and not here." The novel ends with their dialogue. "Why can't we be friends?" Aziz finally understood. British rule over India taints even personal friendships between ruler and ruled. Yet knowing this, Aziz chose to embark again, challenging new unknown experiences. A Passage to India features complex characters and plots, chronicling Aziz's friendships with three Brits, their birth, evolution, and rupture. Finally, he begins anew the journey to seek fresh friendships. While exploring friendship, the author weaves in India's mystical forces and examines colonizer-colonized relationships. In the novel, all three Brits try to shed narrow racial consciousness. They befriend Aziz, but each friendship unfolds differently. Let's look at each separately, starting with Mrs. Moore. Forster portrays Mrs. Moore as ideal for bridging cultures. She holds no prejudice, immerses naturally in Hindu music, and treats Aziz as an equal. Thus, Aziz's bond with her develops most smoothly. Her ability stems from personal faith. She's a devout Christian. She told Ronnie, "India is part of God's world. He brought us here to show kindness and love. God is everywhere, even in India, watching how we treat each other." There's another telling detail in the novel. One night, Mrs. Moore found a sleeping wasp on her hotel coat hook. Unaware wasps are sacred in Hinduism, she cherished it tenderly, even humming lullabies. This ability to embrace another culture builds racial bridges. Host caves, mystical forces leave Mrs. Moore with nihilistic emptiness, shaking her faith. Though she didn't testify for Aziz, he remembered her kindness after she left India. When her other son arrived, Aziz immediately welcomed him. Next is Adela. Unlike other colonists, she isn't arrogant toward Indians. But unlike Mrs. Moore, her motives aren't rooted in deep faith. Adela's naive curiosity drives her. Her open-minded youth seeks cross-cultural experiences, hence befriending Aziz. Yet in racially charged environments, true equality remains impossible, preventing deep emotional bonds. Finally, let's talk about Fielding. Through him, Forster explores the fundamental issue Brits must resolve when interacting with Indians: the colonial system and racial equality. Fielding is Forster's own alter ego. Forster said, "My work emphasizes human relationships. I believe natural human feelings are sacred. Genuine connections and reasonable interactions form perfect bonds." This mirrors Fielding's beliefs. Independent-minded, it teaches Indian students, befriends Indians, and believes in equal, sincere relationships. He treated Aziz as a true friend, inviting him for tea. Discussing diverse topics, Fielding took pride in his closeness with Aziz. But Fielding faced a core dilemma. Operating in a racially divided environment, this environment constantly threatened to twist their friendship into a burden. When Aziz was arrested, racial tensions exploded. Fielding got trapped between sides, shunned by Brits, pressured by Indians to prove his stance. This created a rift between them. Exhausted, Fielding returned to England. Without resolving the core British-Indian conflict, personal efforts against racial bias are wishful thinking. In this context, Mrs. Moore's faith faced crisis. Adela sincerely reflected, but still couldn't build equal friendship with Aziz. At the novel's end, Fielding marries. He suddenly realized his earlier freedom to interact with Indians stemmed from being single. If he'd married a British woman, could she have moved so freely in Indian circles? During the trial, could he have maintained independence against all his countrymen? This reflection brought Fielding and Aziz to consensus. Their conflict stemmed from British-Indian inequality. Forster thus clarifies his view. As long as Britain colonizes India, equal cross-racial friendship is impossible. Through the novel, Forster expresses his stance against British colonization, enabling contemporary readers to deeply understand colonialism. The novel depicts Chandrapur's dirty, dilapidated cityscape. British visitors are first shown this to form immediate impressions of Indian squalor, completely ignoring the beautiful surrounding scenery. Meanwhile, the British live outside this shabby city, overlooking it from their upscale residences, refusing to mix with dirty Indians. Forster writes about such British behavior with condemnation. Through detailed exploration, Forster concludes, without ending colonization, there'll be no peace between British and Indian peoples. The novel's climax is the incident in the Malabar caves. These caves seem filled with mystical power, causing discomfort and hallucinations in the ladies, leading to Adela's false accusation against Aziz. Here, the ancient Malabar caves serve as metaphor, symbolizing true Indian national culture in the author's vision. British entry into the caves signifies cultural collision. Forster's portrayal of colonialism and cultural gaps enhanced readers' understanding, sparked reflection, giving the novel political impact that contributed to India's future independence. However, Forster repeatedly tells readers to overlook political aspects and view it humanistically. Through Three Britons and One Indian, Forster's humanism and Orientalism intertwine. His colonial India presents mysterious exoticism, with Fielding, Mrs. Moore, and Adela all affected by this mystical force. He believes this force transcends British rationality, requiring unconventional thinking. Thus, the four main characters embody not only British Indian hope, but universal significance beyond these relations. They all share a precious quality, attempting to transcend their own ethnic groups. If someone only interacts within their own ethnic group, relies solely on it for belonging, and only admires their own long history and splendid culture, then no matter how talented they are, they remain narrow-minded and incomplete when ignorant of other cultures. Conversely, stepping beyond one's group to listen to different languages, engage with unfamiliar cultures, and invite the unknown into one's world is the essential path to independence, freedom, and truth. Well, that concludes our interpretation of the novel A Passage to India. Reading notes are below the audio. See you tomorrow.